Probably many of you are like I was. I knew I was eligible for DAR. I had a cousin on my mother's side. I later found out that I had a cousin on my daddy's side that were members of DAR. But I taught school, and I knew that I wanted to join Thankful Hubbard. I'd heard a lot about it. And so I waited until I retired from teaching after 37 years. And I then in a couple of years, I started making inquiries, and I found out I had no idea how to, even go. And I ran into a cousin of my dad's, and she said, "Oh, here's my DAR number. Just they can pull it up and get my application." I said, "Oh, okay." So we did that, and then Zipper Morgan was very helpful. She was the vice regent at the time. And so, by the way, this is my 20th anniversary this month of being approved for DAR. We met, by the way, upstairs in the parlor. That was held up, everybody that came, and we would meet up there. In 2000, that was 2004. In 2006, Zipper Morgan became regent. And it seemed that after, I think it was 2 months, the vice regent had to resign for health reasons. And all of a sudden, I discovered I was appointed vice regent. I went, "Oh." They said, "Oh, no problem. Your cousin's vice president at UT. She can help you get programs, because that's the main deal that you do." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I did. We had a couple of really great programs I was going to mention. Many of you have heard James Haley speak. He writes a lot on Texas. He's hysterically funny. He spoke. Jim Hornfisher, who's Sharon Hornfisher, is a member of our chapter. Jim, unfortunately, has passed away, but he wrote a number of books on the U.S. Navy during World War II. And another program that we had that was really fun was a lady who spoke on White House China. So some of you who were here may remember her. This was also the first time that we had the Christmas tea at my house. So, well, in 2008, I suddenly discovered, hey, if you're vice regent, you become regent. And I went, oh, nobody told me that. So I'm regent. I wanted to show you this. This was the yearbook.
Oh my.
It was very small, as you can see. We did have 233 members, but everybody fit in this book. And we also used to, we don't do it anymore because we have so many members, every ancestor was printed in this book. Not just your main ancestor, but every ancestor was printed in this book. So, but I just wanted to show y'all the difference, because you'll know. One of our programs, which is interesting because I had totally forgotten, was Lieutenant Colonel Dave Palmer. Colonel Palmer is the gentleman who started the Plaza of Liberty in McAllen. And we were just down there 3 or 4 weeks ago, dedicating a statue of Galvez. There's this, it's really interesting. I had not been there, but all of the wars that the United States has been in has a certain section. And we adopted DAR national, well, state actually, adopted obviously the Revolutionary War. And we have put a statue of Patrick Henry, George Washington, Martha Washington, and now Galvez. And so if you're ever in the Valley in McAllen, I would strongly suggest that you go and spend some time. We were kind of rushed, and I didn't get to walk around as much as I'd like, but it is quite a plaza. They bring school children and on field trips to walk around and study all the different wars. So it's there. But as I said, I'd forgotten that he did. Yes.
Is that funded just by Thankful
No, it's a state. It's a state sponsorship. In 2010, Pat Harge became regent, and I became vice regent. One of the big things was we had grown that we moved downstairs, and that's when we began meeting here. Another thing I want to mention is that this is the beginning of Thankful Hubbard's really involvement in historic preservation at Austin Women's Club. Rebecca Cahoot was the historic preservation chair, and Pat and Rebecca wrote a grant, and this is when we restored the stained glass, had it cleaned, repaired, resorted, and so forth. So that was our beginning of historic preservation for AWC. A couple of programs we had, one was a member, she still is a member, but she's so busy she never comes anymore because she travels a lot. Ann Keene came and spoke on the American colony in Brazil after the Civil War. And if you've never been really aware of this, it's a fascinating story. And actually her great grandfather had been one of these. These were Confederates who did not want to live in the US after the Civil War. And they went to Brazil and established colonies. And it's a pretty fascinating story, really. Also, we had the director of the National Museum of the Pacific War. And we had the Christmas tree at my house. It was during this time that I was asked to be state chair of American history. Pamela Wright was state regent. Okay, you said, well, first of all, I had met Pamela through DRT because I was custodian general for DRT, and we decided to do a pen. It had never been done before. And so, of course, I knew Pamela Wright did all the pens. So I went down and met with her. That was my first real personal meeting, sitting down with her, designing the pen, etc. So because, though, I had been regent at Thankful Hubbard, she asked me to be state chair. You know, you really have to meet somehow, and a lot of it's volunteering. It's how you get to know people. Now, I'll elaborate a little bit more on that in a minute. Well, it seemed in 2012, American History State Chair, as you may well know, because we give that award. It's given to essays 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And back then, there was the Columbus essay contest that has now left, and we have the Patriots contest for high school students. But the entries come to you as state chair, and then you find 3 judges to judge them. Then from there, you contact the chapter regents that win. You also contact the students, and of course, only first place winners come to state conference. But you're responsible for making sure that the state pays for the room, but you make sure that you get the rooms taken care of. Find out how many are coming. One year I had 13 people. No, I'm sorry. There were 13 children, and I had 17 in one family that came. Now, state didn't pay for all that, but just getting all of them seated in reserved seats and so forth kind of blew up all our minds when we found out that they had 13 children. In 2012, I was just a member until a couple of months later, the regent resigned for health reasons. And so guess who got to be regent again? So this is my second time. Two of our programs, one was Donna Raymond. If you were here at the 125th, Donna was here. Ms. Raymond actually has been national corresponding secretary general, and is an honorary state regent. And she is and was also national chair for DAR schools. So she came and spoke on the schools. And Kathy Thomas, who is one of our members, spoke on Nancy Ward. And this is somebody else that you need to know about. Nancy Ward was also an Indian, and she warned the Patriots of an impending attack by the Indians and the British. And Kathy is a direct descendant of hers, and she does, it's really, we need to probably get Kathy back because she's so interesting. Oh, and we have the Christmas tree at my house. For some reason, I ended up being regent the next 2 years, from 2014 to 2016. Nancy Camp was a registrar, and this is when our membership just exploded. We received national awards for the most new members. We had over 100 new members. The most, also the national award for the most new junior members was during that time. I became DAR state chair for Good Citizen under Judy Osler, which was a little bit different. You weren't dealing but with one person for DAR Good Citizen. But, you know, once more, the entries come in, have to get them judged. And it's basically, there is a very strict judging sheet for Good Citizen that you follow. The next year, we won a national award another time for most new members. And we also received a national award for the most points on the Chapter Achievement Award, thanks to Tacey,
your report was good,
who became the queen of the master report. What had happened was, I could very well remember this, it was due, we were finishing or working on it in January. I came to the meeting and had to leave because I had the flu, and Tacey took over. And she did such a fabulous job, obviously winning a national award, that we just kept asking her to do it every year. But obviously, when we won that award that year, they announced, they said, no one, and I don't think anyone has, no one will ever beat this number that Thankful Hubbard received. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because you got points for all the new members, and you got extra points, I believe, for new junior members. So it was a pretty big honor. And it is, I will say, it's exciting to be up on the stage. It's cold. If you go to Continental Congress or you ever watch it, usually people are wrapped up in blankets or shawls or something up there because it is cold. But it's exciting to be up and look out over all the people in the audience and see this. And I was honored to get to do this a couple of times. Some of our programs, we had the history of hats. Susan Francis, who was a state officer from the Valley, came up and portrayed Ellen Hardin Walworth. A program on historic trees, the Sears Modern Home, and Kay Yarborough, who was, I think at that time, state vice regent of Florida, came and did Martha Washington. We had Kahana Patriots, we had butterflies, and it was during this time that the ancestors left the yearbook. We no longer put ancestors in yearbooks. We just had too many members with too many ancestors. And then we also began doing the spiral notebook during this time. I came in one day, and that was when you still had your house phone, and I had, caller ID, and there was on there this unusual area code, and I looked down and it said, I forgot what his name was, Dylan, and I went, gosh, the only Dylan I know is President General. Well, it was Mrs. Dillon who called me and asked me to be National Vice Chair of Project Patriot, which I nearly fell over. Needless to say, I was very shocked. And before I had a chance, or before I called her back, I thought I better read up and see what Project Patriot does. Because we were not really doing much in Thankful Hubbard with Project Patriot. It was always veterans. And so I read, and it was that we mainly zeroed in on active duties. That's what Project Patriot is. So I called Mrs. Dillon, and she asked me at that time, would I be? And I said, well, I can't believe I asked this. I said, well, who's going to be the chair? I thought, I don't want to be vice chair if I don't like that person. Well, and it would be hard if you didn't like them or really didn't know them that well, having to deal with them. Well, it turned out it was Dr. Jan Garrison, who is now going to be a state corresponding secretary, I believe, from Houston. And of course I knew Jan, and I said, oh yes, I'll be glad to be vice chair. This was really an eye-opening experience, because in Project Patriot, they have now, that time they had 3 vice chairs, one for Brooks Medical Center in San Antonio, one in Indiana at Camp Atterbury, and one at Walter Reed. And you were responsible for finding out their needs at your place, and then telling Dr. Garrison what was needed. And then she went to the national board and put that in the budget and asked for. One of the big things that we got was computers, iPads and computers, so that the soldiers could check them out, or if they were in the hospital, they'd have them in the hospital and so forth. So that was probably our bit. There is a family center down there at Brooks that is still maintained. I noticed the other day on Facebook that one of the San Antonio chapters had been out weeding and planting garden. They have a track that is used for rehabilitation around there. They have a pantry so that if families come, they can get things out of the pantry and can actually cook a meal there. There's a big kitchen. There's a huge computer room. Dale had given, 30 computers with internet connection. So it's really a great project. It was just something I had to learn about, because I had no idea that it was existed, which is unfortunate. There are a lot of things in Texas that DAR is involved in that unless somebody has a connection, you really don't know what it is, what we do. When Susan Tillman became state chair, she asked me to be state chair of Founders Medal, which once more, it was one of those I kind of knew, because I'd heard Founders Medals being presented, but you do one for patriotism, for education, a youth one, and And you don't do all of them, you don't have to do all four of them at the same time. Usually you do a patriotism. One year we did, well, my first year, we did one for a retired, actually retired medical officer who trained service dogs. And we gave the youth one for a young man who he and his father during, I just went blank on which hurricane that was in Houston, that hit Houston. The big one that hit Houston, what was it? Yeah, Harvey, just went blank. Harvey, their whole neighborhood was, or near their neighborhood was flooded, and he and his father took canoes and rescued people. One gentleman who was running out of oxygen, and they ended up with like 15, 20 people at their house that had been flooded out. So anyway, he received, he was nominated by a chapter in Houston, and he received the Founders Medal. In 2020, Denise Van Buren became President General, and this was kind of the difference. I got an email asking if I would be national chair for commemorative events. And I knew enough on commemorative events that, yes, this is perfect for me because it's history. And I will say I had fabulous opportunities. Unfortunately, I lost a year and a half of this because of COVID. Everything, of course, shut down. My first trip was to Boston for the Boston Massacre. And it was, just fabulous. It had been arranged, and it was already in the works when I became commemorative events. There was, well, let me tell you about commemorative events, first of all, how it works. Every event has a vice chair. Then you also have under you division vice chairs, 10 of them. So I had 17 technically vice chairs under me to communicate, to coordinate the different events, etc. I will say I was so lucky. I had the most wonderful vice chairs. I only had one. I hate to even say that. She was young. She had 2 jobs. She had a family, and it was later the person who had suggested that she be a vice chair apologized to me and said I should have never recommended her because she just didn't have the time. But anyway, back to the Boston Massacre. Flew up, they had a dinner that night with Mrs. Young speaking, and then Arthur from the Boston Massacre. The next morning, we went to the burying ground, the granary burying ground, which was not far from Omni, and had a big ceremony with wreath laying. Then we had a tour of Paul Revere's house, which, by the way, was saved by DAR, discovered, and then they have helped restore it. We went to the old State House and then had lunch at the Armory. The next morning I left, and that was when it was hitting Seattle, but they had just had a medical convention in Boston with a number of people from Seattle. And I was in the airport and I'm thinking, when I realized this, oh gosh. But anyway, I flew home. That next weekend, we were at state conference in Dallas and everything shut down. Some of you were there. It was quite interesting. The only reason we were able to continue was the fact that we were at DFW and nobody could go on, leave, or come back. And the only people we saw the whole time from the outside were the pilots and stewardesses that were coming. But otherwise, and I have to be honest, all the husbands were calling in saying, what do you need? What do you need? You know, there was a big run on toilet paper. That was, and bread. Those were the two things that seemed you always heard about. And I kept thinking, gosh, do I have enough toilet paper? Because I knew it was going to be gone by the time I got back. And I did. And we stopped in West, and I bought some of their bread. So I had some bread because I knew there was nothing at home and everything was going to be shut down by the time I got home on Sunday. So totally closed. We accepted events that were done on Zoom. And we had Continental Congress that year by Zoom. We were asked to do a PowerPoint with our winners. And I had a division vice chair that ended up helping me with my PowerPoint. Everything was ready to go. And I get an email I think it was a phone call from Mrs. Van Buren's office saying, Mrs. Van Buren wants to come be on your Zoom and bring greetings. We had recorded the program. So I had to scramble. Kate Johans in the Austin colony helped me, and we had to re-scramble it so that I could welcome Mrs. Van Buren to come say a few words on the PowerPoint. And then, so by the next year, when I knew we were going to have to do a PowerPoint, I was ready. But now you suddenly go, oh. Finally, things were getting better. Miss Van Buren called and asked me if I would go back to Boston to do a turnaround cruise with the USS Constitution, which I thought, this sounds great. They were having a big ceremony for Vietnam veterans, pinning them, giving them certificates. And so I called my roommate, who I'll have to tell you that. I have been rooming with the state regent from Illinois. She is presently the state regent. She was national chair at the time. So I called and I said, hey, you want to go with me? She said, sure. So she flew up and met me. And what they do is they take the Constitution out for a couple of miles and just turn it so that it wears evenly. So they do it, they used to do it 2 times a year. Now I understand they're doing it 4 times a year. But it's kind of exciting. And unfortunately, we're not there. We were there earlier. As you know, there is the commander of the USS Constitution is a woman. The first time ever that they've had a woman commander of the USS Constitution. So, pretty exciting. Then I flew home and immediately I went to Santa Fe for the Santa Fe Trail commemoration. They were doing several monuments, and then they had a reenactment in Santa Fe of the settlers, not the settlers, the gentleman who I have now forgotten. I thought I would never forget his name. But he opened he's the gentleman who opened the Santa Fe Trail. And they had a total reenactment of that on the plaza in Santa Fe. So, and I have since become good friends with many people in Santa Fe, and I have been invited back to their state conference, which is interesting to compare a state with 16 chapters compared to a state with over 200 chapters. So it's very interesting to see the difference of the states. It's lovely, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about because they are very big into the Patriots, the Hispanic Patriots, and or Spanish at that time, Patriots. They're very big in that. I didn't write down something I was going to tell you, and now I don't remember what it was. By the way, the commemorative events, it's also on Friday at Continental Congress. They're the only ones besides American Heritage that does a awards program. They do it in the National Officers Club room. But, I mean, it's big, it's packed. And so now we come to basically where I am today. I'm finishing up my term as state historian, having been elected in 2021. I discovered, actually, I found out, I said something to Mrs. Wright after I was appointed as national chair, and I said something, and she just smiled. I said something about being national chair, and she just smiled. So I knew that that was where my appointment came from. Actually, the national officers, and I'll be honest, the state officers, state region president general asked for nominees. Who would you like to be considered? So of course, I know the name was thrown out because of Mrs. Wright. What's interesting is there were only 3 national chairs under Mrs. Van Buren from Texas. We were all from the same district. We were all from District 7. Jamie Birchfield, Austin Colony, and Zia Lowe from Kings Highway and Bastrop. So Texas used to do a school bus tour, and you went to all the schools that we supported except Hillside in Boston, obviously. You wouldn't go there. And it would start, they took 2 buses. No, I'm sorry, 1 bus. It would start in San Antonio, stop in Austin. Carol went on it with me 1 year. Then we would go to Fort Worth and pick up the Dallas-Fort Worth people from anywhere else. And then we would start out. And I guess the first school you went to was Crossnore. And then you came, no, I'm sorry. You went to, Carol, help me. Kentucky. No, the Kentucky one. It's not. No, Hillside is Boston. No. Anyway, you start in Kentucky, then you go to Crossnore, then you go to, at that time, we were still supporting Tomasi in Tennessee, at Tennessee, and then to Berry College in Georgia, and then you ended at KDS, Kate Duncan Smith, in Alabama. And everything was great. I mean, it's arranged, and I'm so sorry we don't do that anymore. But when I was national chair, I went on the national bus tour. And I think what has happened, the reason, because now there is no longer a national bus tour, I think it got where there were so many people that, because the schools would provide a meal, and I really think it just got too many people, that they just felt that it was overwhelming because the national bus tour had 2 buses. Texas came, we had 1 bus. 1 year Illinois went with a bus. 1 year California had a bus. So I think, as I said, I think it was just overwhelming. But if you're ever in any of these areas, Crossnore is also known because they have ladies who weave, and they have a huge shop that they sell capes, placemats, napkins, just all kinds. This is one of the ways they support Crossmiller. They also have a resale shop that is unbelievable. I bought a pantsuit there for $10, and it was a linen pantsuit by Escada. And what it is, a lot of the ladies come from New York. They have homes up in the mountains and for the summer. And so when they leave, they just give their clothes to Crossmiller, to their resale shop. So you never know what you're going to find there. But it's beautiful in that area as well. So, and Berry College is voted every year as the most beautiful college campus in the United States. It's over 20,000 acres. Much of it is wooded. Mrs. Berry started this back in the 20s. All the students, and this is the really great thing, all the students have some kind of job on campus. They leave campus, leave from graduation owing nothing. And it's as I said, it's probably one of the best kept secrets around. And then KDS is up on Grant Mountain, and when you go up out in the bus, the little kids are lined on the side of the drive going, "We love DAR, we love DAR." They're so cute. And then they have the lunch that they used to have. The kids would entertain you, sing. They were so, the little ones were so cute. But they had took sawhorses and just it was a gym. It would be the whole length of the gym. There would be food laid out, and it was all home cooked. I mean, it was, and it went back to when they were deciding, Mrs. Smith was trying to decide where she was going to locate the school in the 20s. And they heard about that. And so when she came there, they all came in with big picnic baskets and had this big feast. And she chose that Grant Mountain for the location. It is now the only official DAR school. We sponsor the others, but officially KDS is the only one now. No longer, Tomasi is not around anymore. Back to being a historian. My biggest job was I get the CMR. I have and have to make a report and I receive from the Historian General ever approval of any marker that is a historical marker or patriot marker, and I have a spreadsheet on that. I get the America 250 marker approvals. I also am sent for the grave markers. And if you mark a grave, the chapter is supposed to do a dedication, and then that sheet of paper, half of it sent to me, half of it sent to the Historian General. And so you keep a spreadsheet on that. And Mrs. Lovett has, of course, we have laid lots of wreaths over these 3 years. And I have done lots of research, which I love. I'm not going to complain because I love doing the research on the different people, events that we've done. So, and now as I'm leaving that, I am in my second year of the National Development Committee, in which we are trying to get people to become sustaining members of DAR. This is basically the way they know that there's going to be funds to run yearly DAR. It's very easy to do. You sign up, it comes out of your credit card, and you really don't even know it. And you can sign up for as little as $5 a month. I think if you do $42, then that goes, well, all of it goes into the Heritage Club that you build up on the Heritage Club. But I believe $42 makes it a total for the year. And that's what, a lot of people. But as I said, if you just want to do $5 a month, you can do that. We're not particular. We appreciate. But under the Heritage, under the sustaining member group, this is the 10-year anniversary. So it's a newer group. You have the Heritage Club, and that is the one that you build up, and if you buy the pen, it's done by a color, how much you've given. And you turn in, once you get to the next level, you turn that pen in and buy the next one. So, and then there's the Founders Club. If you are leaving money, you give $5,000, or if you leave money in your will, something like that, then you qualify for the Founders Club. And this year, all of the Heritage Club and Founders Club, there's going to be one big dinner on Friday night at the Reagan Building. So are there any questions before we? I know I probably bore a lot of you.
Fascinating.
So Betty, I have a question.
Yeah.
So on the historical marker, is that like the markers that you see on the road that are staying?
No, those are Texas Historical Commission.
So where are the DAR historical?
Well, we've got two at the cemetery that are considered the Patriot Monument is historical marker. Gosh, Lady Washington's put out, I think they have over 100 that they've done in Houston. One of them is at Sam Houston Park. That one comes immediately to mind. I'm not sure we have one of the things, oh, and by the way, some of you may have seen on Facebook about the Historian General has, I think it's over 100,000 index cards with all these markers on them. They have no spreadsheet, they have no record except for these index cards of where these markers are.
So there's no database.
Right. And I found this out a couple of years ago after I became state historian, and I thought, this would be great if we had a database for Texas. So I call up to the Historian General's office, and I asked, and she said, Betty, we don't have that information. They've never kept it. And we went, oh, so Mrs. Husky is trying to get something done. They are asking people to volunteer. It's similar to the project that Casey has worked on for years of transcribing these cards, and you send them in, and well, don't send them in, I mean, you email them. And I just talked to Suzanne Fraud, who y'all all know, and most of you know, has just volunteered, and she told me that it's really fascinating. The biggest problem is that there are a lot of times there are things written in the margin in pencil, And she said that is the hardest thing, is trying to transcribe the pencil notes and so forth. But she said that it's going to be a big job. So if any of you, Miss Husky's looking for volunteers. And as Stacy has always said, you can do this in your pajamas.
It's the most convenient DAR work you can find. If there's a project that's online that interests you, really should.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Betty, I think you probably already answered this question. Lucy said a lot of things. What was the most rewarding job that you had? Or thing that you did with the DAR? And you probably already answered that.
No, I don't think I have. To be honest with you, it's meeting people. You know, I've loved, when I started going to Continental Congress, which that was an adventure too. Do we have time to tell that?
Sure.
But the first time I went to Continental Congress, I went by myself. I knew Aline Thompson, who was a former chapter regent, and her daughter were there. And Zipporah and her husband, Zipporah Morgan and her husband, Marvin, were there. But I fly up to Dallas, because that was before there was nonstop to DC. And I'm in the airport and I see this lady with a DAR bag. So I just go over and introduce myself. And she was, at that time, I didn't know, she was the national chair. But Gail was lovely. And we took a cab into JW Marriott. And she said, now I'm going on over to register. Do you want to go? And I said, oh, sure. So she shows me where to register and everything. But she's meeting some people. Y'all, I'm honest, I didn't even know how to get back to the Marriott. And finally, I saw some ladies, I knew they were walking. And this is when you used to could walk in front of the White House. There was a sidewalk that went right in front of the White House. And so I just started kind of following them and got back to the hotel, as I said. Then the next day was the Texas tea. Well, Eileen and them didn't ever go to the Texas tea. Now, this tea is most of you have seen the ad, is 3:30. Nobody told me it was formal. So I put on this really nice suit and I go down. I just think I look so nice. And I walked in the room, and if you don't think I was embarrassed, it was so, that's why anytime that a member in this chapter goes to Continental Congress, the first thing I said to them is, if you're going to the Texas tea, it is formal. Please remember that, because as I said, it was very embarrassing. Later, I realized you could, well, actually, Catherine Browning from Georgetown was national chair for corridor hostesses. The corridor hostesses are the ones who hold the ropes where the national officers, state regents, so forth, process in. Well, you get to meet. You're not supposed to talk, but they talk back to you, so then you can talk. I met so many lovely ladies this way. And I always encourage people, if you're going to Continental Congress, volunteer to do something, because you really get to meet lots of people. And I think that's probably the most rewarding. I love what DAR does, but it's getting to know so many people from all over this country. Yeah. And I'm on Facebook with people that I've met, just California, Michigan, Massachusetts, so but I can't tell you enough, volunteer, not only in your chapter, but in 3 years, we'll have the state conference here again. Volunteer to do something. It'll be you'll be happy because you'll meet a lot of really lovely people. And I want to close with, they always said it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a chapter to help someone become a regent, a state chair, national chair, a state officer. It's the chapter that backs you up, and you know that they're here.